independent podcast network, you are paying attention. And here's your host, also once again, Tom Duggan.
By the way, if you ever come up to Studio Podcast Cafe, Studio 21, you gotta see Sean the barista. This is literally the best coffee I've ever had in my life. And if you know me, you know I don't just say those kinds of things. Like if I thought it really sucked, I would tell you. But it's excellent coffee. I actually think about, Sean the barista, I actually think about your coffee all flipping week. Every time I go through Dunkin' Donuts and I take a sip, I go, yeah, it's not Sean the barista's coffee, that's for sure. That's for sure. We wrote a segment for Sean the barista. We're going to give him a permanent segment on the show because he's absolutely rip-roaring hysterical. Sitting with me now here on the Paying Attention program, thank you to Twin Light Security, Century 21 Teams in Dallas, A&M Auto Body. I don't know why I keep saying A and B, but A&M Auto Body. And who did we leave out? There's somebody else. We'll figure it out in a second. Sitting with me today is somebody that I always try to go out of my way to support because she's doing the work of the angels. Carina Pappalardo is sitting to the far left here, is the head of the Greater Lawrence Psychological Center. And the Psychological Center has a number of programs, one of the most important of which, is the Daybreak Homeless Shelter in Lawrence. And rather than me tell you what they do, I think maybe it'd probably be better if she tells you what they do. Because what I thought we could do today is kind of educate people about what you guys do, what Daybreak does, but also talk about some solutions as to how we can motivate our politicians to fund what you guys do and to support what you guys do, because it doesn't seem like you're getting a lot of support.
Well, you know it's a big task. Thanks for having us, Tom. Always appreciate the support that you give us. Daybreak Shelter, you know, is located in Lawrence, 19 Winter Street. We're an emergency homeless shelter, and it's a wet shelter. So what makes us different from others, we allow people to come in under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and we won't turn them away. We want to just make sure that they're safe and that we can give them the environment that they should be in.
And most won't do that, right?
No, that's correct. Again, one of two in Massachusetts. Really unique, so the only one in Essex County. Daybreak Shelter has been around for a long time. We have 50 beds, 35 male beds, 15 female beds. That's 50 beds, but at this current time, the state's only funding us for 38. However, we know that there's a lot of people out there in a very big need. We want to make sure that all of our beds are full. So we will always be at capacity, and and some nights over the capacity.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain to people why it's important that you guys be a wet shelter? There's only 2 in the state, which is kind of staggering to me, because as somebody who drives around Lawrence and chases police calls and spends a lot of time in Lawrence, I can't imagine it's 3 degrees below zero, and a guy who maybe is addicted to heroin or maybe he's had a couple of drinks shows up at a homeless shelter because he's cold and he has nowhere to go, and that they would turn him away because of his state of sobriety. So why is it important that these homeless shelters, especially your homeless shelter, be a wet shelter?
I mean, as you could imagine, them dying on the streets, freezing out there, just because they couldn't get in, just to find that warmth is what is the most important. Mm-hmm. This, safety is really important. And here I have today with me Brooke Armstrong. She actually is at the shelter. That's where she works full time. She's one of our best case managers, and she's going to tell you what it's like as an individual, one of our welcome guests that comes in, and what the process is like for them, and how many people we're helping.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
Thank you for having me here. I'm very nervous.
That's okay. Give me your name again.
Brooke.
Brooke, okay.
Armstrong, yeah.
I'll remember that.
So if I could briefly just say something on my opinion as far as why it's important to have a wet shelter, it's because, as one might be able to imagine, it can't be easy to go from living on the street to just waking up one day, with nothing and thinking, oh, well, I'm going to get my life together. You need a little support, a little foundation to start from, and that's what our program provides. So what it looks like in the beginning is someone will come in and we'll get an initial intake done on them, and that will just be like a kind of, brief summary of what's going on with them, where they're at, kind of the services they're looking for. Again, regardless of their situation, clean, sober or not, what they want to do, we get them in, we secure them a bed, they come in, they get to take a warm shower, get a hot meal. We serve dinner and snack as well. We provide them with things that they may not have, clothing. They don't have to have their own toiletries. We help them with that. And then they just kind of free to, to go out, smoke, whatever the case may be, watch TV. A lot of them like to, play cards, interact with each other in the dining room. And then depending on what they want to do, what happens next. We usually give them a few days to see what's going on. If they come in active, for example, and they don't want help.
When you say active, what do you mean? You mean
like using drugs or alcohol. Some of them don't want help right away, or there's a lack of security that they feel. They don't realize that we really want to help them because their trust issues are down, and so that's what we work on at first, kind of engaging with them, making them feel safe, and letting them know that like they have support. And then some people, they would like to continue and start to better their lives, and that's where we really try to take it from there, whether it's detox or our sister programs. We try to get them into, we help with housing, get them into IOPs, therapy. We get them set up with like clothing vouchers and refer them out to other programs to help build resumes, like all things a foundation that you need in order to create a life,
Mm-hmm. Now you guys, I did a story, it seems like it was yesterday, but I guess maybe it was like 2 years ago or so, where you had an individual that came through and went through all of your programs, and you ended up finding him placement, I think, in Haverhill, and then he decided to come back and help. And I'm trying to remember his name, but remember I came and I interviewed him, and he's now kind of making it his goal, now that he's put himself back on track. You guys helped him get back on track, and he's coming back to Daybreak and helping you guys out. Do you get a lot of success stories like that, or is that like the aberration? Is it mostly people that come and they stay temporarily and then they kind of disappear?
Many more and more success stories, especially with this new program that the state has, and that the model that we're following. It's TEA, so it's triage, engage, and assess. And everyone comes in, has that case manager. So they're working with someone individually to support them along the way. And the success rate has really skyrocketed. It's taken off. We have a lot of people, and Brooke can address this a little bit more too, but a lot of people who are getting employed, getting housed, they're moving on afterwards, and then they'll stay in contact with us. They always know that they have us for support in case they need that. Mm-hmm. But what do you want to share? A couple of success stories that we've recently had?
Yeah, we've had actually multiple, depending on their needs. Like we've sent a young lady out into Salem to get reunited with her children. Another woman just recently went into a halfway house and is being reunited with her children within the next week. We've had multiple people, vets, that got set up with their housing in their own places. In the past 2 weeks, we've had 4 people move on to either further treatment or their own individual places, and they usually come back and thank us for being there and letting us know that it was the difference that they needed, because they have a longer stay now. There isn't a timeout period. They're just able to get it, a foundation.
Have you found that people, because I'm kind of new to this whole homeless thing, right? So like a couple of years ago, I started helping a homeless veteran, and the next thing I know, I'm like the Merrimack Valley like homeless guy. I don't know how that happened. So I've been trying to help you guys out, and I'm just trying to, when I have time, to try and do it. And at least and tell me if I'm wrong, at least what I've seen and assessed is that there's a lot of these homeless people. They're almost all addicted, but a lot of them don't want help, or they're not ready for help. When you get those kinds of people and they come in and they're not ready for help, or they don't really want the help, or they don't seem that they want the help, is there a strategy you guys can use to try and give them that confidence that they can think, okay, maybe if I try it this time, it'll work?
I believe so, yes. I know personally what I try to do, like I briefly mentioned earlier, is be there, because sometimes, that feeling of being alone, not having anything, it's kind of hard to let me better myself, because you have nothing to look forward to. So I think, because we engage with them on a daily basis, and let them know that we're there for them. Is there anything we could do? And if they do fall, we don't, all right, you got to go, and I think that's the biggest thing, because they're able to see, okay, they really do care. We engage with them one-on-one, and they're able to tell us stuff, and we start building that trust barrier. And then most of them want to do better, because a lot of people, it's a disease, and so it's not like they are enjoying their life and what's going on, but sometimes they don't realize there's a way out, or necessarily have the support to get out of it.
That engagement piece is huge, Tom. Think about it. They have been harmed and taken advantage of for a very long time. This hasn't happened overnight. Mm-hmm. So to walk into a place and to actually trust someone who is providing this safety net for you isn't easy. So it's being available to them, and just when they're ready, we are here for the ones who are still, tinkering with the idea. should we? And one of the things too that Brooke mentioned in the past, and this has come up, and I still hear this every so often. Oh, we're a 30-day shelter, and we have this big ban. And some people can't come in, which is not the case. So there's no 30-day limit. You're not kicked out for 90 days before you come back. Right now, it's unlimited. You come in, if you're working on something with our support, then you can stay as long as you want. And as a matter of fact, most people, we're saving those beds for them because we know that once they feel secure with us and that they feel secure knowing that they have a place to be at night, it takes a lot off their mind. They can go to work and come back and have that bed. They can be out having treatment, coming back to have that bed. So that's important. We have people that might call out because they're going to spend the night with a family, right, with a child. I'm not going to be home tonight. That's calling Daybreak Shelter home. Unbelievable. I mean, I've always been proud of this agency and of that program, but that just brings such joy to my heart. Incredible. We have a wait list for people to get in there. But it's great because we've been having so many people transition out that we have those open beds for them.
I think one of the problems that you guys probably face the most, and I've seen it because I talk to a lot of the homeless people in Long Beach. By the way, they're all great news sources too. By the way, because they know everything that's going on in the city. But it seems as though that one of the problems is that what you were outlining, and you kind of glossed over it. I want to make sure we highlight it more. Is that there are these rumors that go out on the street. And I remember when I came across one of the guys that I brought to you guys, he said, I said, we found him sleeping on the street, right? It was like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And I said, well, there's a homeless shelter literally a block from here. Get in my car, I'll drive you. He goes, no, I'll walk, but they won't take me. I said, what do you mean they won't take you? I don't have an ID. And I said, well, I'd never heard that. And so I called Carina, and Carina goes, no, that's not true. So eventually we ended up getting him in. But there's a lot of people on the street who say, I've been banned from there, or I was told that I was banned from there, or I don't have an ID, so I can't get in. But they've never actually physically tried to do that. They're going by what someone told them. So all of those rumors hinder your ability to do your job and get people in, because once they're in, it's not just a homeless shelter.
Nope.
You guys have like a next step type program for people that want to go and get a job training, resume training. You even have people like barbers donate their time to give people haircuts if they're going for a job interview. Can you talk about like that next step? Once someone comes through Daybreak and they're not a problem, they're not causing fights or problems, and they say they want help, can you talk about that next step, that what you guys do for them?
So within the shelter from Daybreak, for females at least, we have 2 female residential recovery programs. Pegasus House, which is for women between the age of 18 and 25, and Women's View is for women over the age of 25. So if we have a female that wants to get into that long-term residential recovery treatment, we can help place her in that bed, which is amazing. We can use those 2 programs that we have. And then Brooke can tell you a little bit more about some other opportunities that we have in that next step for that transitional living, and how to keep people successful on their own, because they have to be able to do it on their own.
You don't want them backsliding. They make some kind of gains, and you don't want them backsliding. Yeah.
Right. So as I kind of mentioned, and Carina touched upon too, the biggest thing is the bed that they have. They don't have to worry about coming back and lining up. So they have the ability to leave their stuff there, which makes them feel comfortable and even want to go get a job. So they come in with no ID. We help them get an ID. We send them over to the registry. We help them get their birth certificates. We have outside sources that come in and will actually give them, help them to pay for it. And then we'll send them over to places like the Career Center. And they will sit there with them and build their resume with them. Also at the Career Center, they have multiple things like jobs that are hiring. We also have things that we post all over the place for places that are hiring, and let them know things that we're doing. And then moving a little bit further, when I sit down with my clients and I'll talk to them about maybe some resources. Some of them think that they can't even get a bank account, or that they're not, but there's other ways around that. There's other things you can do, and that's what we try to show them, because not only is you do have to have a job, you have to start working on savings and living within your means and your needs and your wants.
And that's got to be impossible, must seem impossible for someone who's homeless, because they need all $1,000 on their last electric bill from the last place they got get evicted, they might owe money to the electric company, the phone company, they may not be able to open up a bank account for themselves, and you guys kind of help them walk through that process so it's less intimidating and it doesn't seem like it's insurmountable for them.
I mean, look how difficult it is to have a phone call, have a phone conversation sometimes, right? I mean, you talked about Facebook earlier, 4 hours, so it's hard for us sometimes to fill out paperwork. It can be daunting. So for someone who has no experience with doing that, we're there for them and we provide a lot of resources for them.
So one of the big reasons I wanted to have you on, especially this week, is we can educate people about what you guys do, but if they're not actively pressuring their elected officials to fund the Daybreak Homeless Shelter, to fund the Pegasus House and all the programs that you do at the Greater Lawrence Psychological Center, if the funding's not there, all these good things go away. You certainly can't expand on them. They're going to be reduced. And you guys have every single flipping year have to deal with cuts in your budget. You have to deal with politicians that don't want to help you. I don't want to mention which Dan Rivera I'm referring to because that would be wrong. But you have politicians who have just come right out and said, no, I'm not ever doing anything for them. And so I think as a person who's been an activist my whole life, the only way to counter that is to rally the troops, to get the public to understand why this is so important, and then give them instructions on what they can do to pressure their elected officials. So do you have any ideas on how we can educate and pressure our elected officials to understand how critically important this is, especially given a lot of the people who are at Daybreak aren't even from Lawrence. Some of them are from Methuen. I talked to a guy one day who said he was from Swampscott. I'm like, what the hell are you doing in Lawrence? You're from Swampscott? What are you doing up here? Well, this is a wet shelter, and this is the closest one I could find, and that's just the answer, right?
Yeah, but a lot of times it doesn't matter where you're from, first of all. We're not going to ban you if you're not from Lawrence, but we have a great amount of people who are from Lawrence. Most nights, over 50% of our population are individuals who grew up and are from Lawrence. We met a few years ago, and you've been an awesome advocate for us, and we've been working really hard. And I have to say, let's give some credit. We've been seeing more and more people are starting to help. But there are still individuals who think that we're importing the homeless and we're importing the addicts because Daybreak Shelter is there.
Right.
Completely not true. People that come to us for help are coming to us because they don't want to be dead on the street. So let's help everyone that we can. It's important. So homeless individuals, there's always funding for homeless, but it's the families who are homeless first and the veterans who are homeless first. And I get it. They all deserve it. They're I'm not trying to take away from them. But when it comes to homeless individuals, they are the last on the totem pole. And right now, part of the coalition that we belong to, the Coalition for Homeless Individuals, we continue to fight, and we just went into Boston yesterday morning to fight for additional funding. That line is less than $50 million. I think it's a little bit over $44 million. Don't quote me on that, but we're trying to get that up to $50 million, which is still a drop in the bucket. For so many individuals.
And that just gets you guys by. That's not to expand. That's not to help more people. That's just to continue doing what you're doing. And I have an answer when people say, and when Dan Rivera says, and I don't think he's completely wrong that we're importing homeless into Lawrence. Lawrence is importing homeless into Lawrence, but it's not Daybreak that's luring them in. It's heroin and fentanyl.
Thank you.
Nobody's coming to Lawrence because they've got a homeless shelter. They're coming to Lawrence for their drugs, and then once they're there, they become homeless, and then they end up in. It's not you guys causing it, honestly.
Right.
I mean, I'd rather say to everybody, it's fentanyl and heroin. Let's call it what it is, right?
Absolutely.
So
I mean, it's continuing to reach out and work with the local delegation, the delegates, the legislators, the state senators, the state representatives. Diana DeZoglio is always a huge supporter of us.
She's so amazing.
We are really lucky. She got through with some help with some other candidates to get some earmarks. So as far as we know, they haven't been vetoed. We're waiting for those to come in, and we do appreciate those coming from Governor Baker.
Now, I'm going to throw a curve at you, but I want a real answer if you could, please.
Yes.
Who's not very helpful? Who is it that the public could send an email to and express their support for getting more funding for wet shelters and for specifically Daybreak and Pegasus? Who is it? Is it Frank Moran? Is it Marcos Devers? Is it Juana Matias? Is it Barbara L'Italian? Who is it that people can nicely, we don't want them to be mean because we want them on our side, right? But who is it that the public can nicely send an email to or make a phone call to and say, please make this a priority? Who is it that we need to target?
I'm going to say all of them. The only one that you really don't need to target is State Representative Diana DeZoglio, but the mayor. You know, we need to have the mayor on our side. He is running the city. That's what he's responsible for, and we need his support in addition to everybody else.
I think if 1 million people called him on the phone in one day, he still wouldn't change his mind. I don't think he's going to change his mind, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. So if you live in Lawrence and you care about the homeless situation, and I'm sure if you live in Lawrence, you care about the homeless situation, because they're either breaking into your cars or they're in your neighborhoods asking to bump cigarettes off of you, and sometimes it's a public safety issue. You ought to care. You ought to be calling the mayor, send an email to the mayor, and let him know that you think it's a priority that Lawrence at least does something. I was shocked to learn that you guys don't get a penny of city money.
Nothing. No.
So think about this, folks. You have all of these puking liberals in Lawrence that run as Democrats who claim to be progressive and care about the homeless and the downtrodden and the illegal aliens and the immigrants and everybody that they think that they want to help that's on the lower end of the scale. And yet the poorest of the poor, the people who need it the most, the homeless, people who have nothing, screw them. They don't pay not one penny? Wait a minute. You guys run for office every year as progressives who care about poor people, and not one penny? Kendris Vasquez and the city council hasn't allocated 1 penny for the homeless issue? Like, how shocking is that? Like, maybe in the world of Trump and shock, nothing shocks anybody anymore, but I was very shocked to learn that.
You know, unless they do in some other avenue, but none of it comes to Daybreak Shelter.
Yeah.
And I can tell you none of it comes to the psychological
That's got to
center.
change. And the good thing is that the Lawrence City Council gets elected every 2 years. We've got a new council now, and I've been talking to a lot of them about this very issue. And those who don't respond favorably, I'm going to be campaigning for someone to defeat them on this issue, because really, can you clean up Lawrence? Can you clean up the drugs? Can you clean up the violence? Can you clean up the garbage on the streets if you're not even taking care of your homeless people? If you don't even have just get them off the street so we can do something?
It seems like common sense.
Right. I mean, anyways, I'll get into a political rant, and I don't want to get you in trouble.
Thank you.
So we do have to take a break. We have to get Mark up here. Can you give people a phone number that they can call, or an email, or a website that they can call, or to contact you if they want to help? Maybe they might want to make a donation. Maybe they might want to drop off some clothing items or some toiletry items for the homeless. I know I got a whole car full of socks that you can take. Everybody seems to think the Valley Patriot office is the sock drop-off place now. I got a whole living room full of socks. I don't even know what to do with them anymore. I think every homeless person in Lawrence has 20 pairs of socks. They all came from my office. But where can people donate? Where can they drop off items? How can they help? How can they volunteer if they want to volunteer?
Absolutely. You know, donations are always welcome, whether it's monetary or items. We're going through a lot of socks, shoes, laundry detergent, paper plates, hygiene products. They can bring that all right to Daybreak Shelter, which is located at 19 Winter Street in Lawrence. We call it our hidden gem. Sometimes it's a little hard to find, but if you're familiar with Lawrence, you'll know exactly where it is. So bring all of those donations there. You can also find us on the website, psychologicalcenter.com. And if you ever have any questions and want to connect with me, I can be reached at 978-291-2262.
All right.
Thanks,
excellent.
Tom.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming.
Very nice to meet you.
Will you come back?
Absolutely.
I'd like to actually do
Anytime.
a whole show. I don't know if you saw our first show. We had all of the police chiefs up here.
Yes.
We talked about the opioid crisis. I'd like to do another summit, but I want it to be some police and some people on the service end. See if we can't come up with some solutions.
Yeah, let's do it.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Thank
you
you
so much for being here.
Thank you.
I'm Tom Duggan. This is the Paying Attention podcast. Coming up next, my pal, Mark Roberge, the mastermind of Prospect Hill, and he's going to talk about his new company, red13creative.com. And I think he might even have like an announcement of some kind to make. I don't know what that was all about, but if you stick around, I promise we won't disappoint on Paying Attention.